Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Combat Chats podcast. And this week we're going to be going over the previous UFC card, UFC 298, pretty good card, as well as going over the upcoming UFC Fight Night, Moreno versus Rival 2.
Yeah, but two exciting rematches this weekend. Obviously both fights ending from injury last time out, which never good to see. Both shoulder, or I think Rival might have injured his hand, but that sort of area. But we've got a lot of good fights last week to get into first. Very depressing week for me. I've been staying off social media. I'm not going to lie, that knockout has just been replaying everywhere you go. And it's sad to see as a Volk fan for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. So it's a real shame as well because I felt like a lot of people were counting him out, really. And in all fairness, I think there is just going to be this new generation. I think it's like at age 35, at 170 pounds or below.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The decline is just there's a pattern there.
22 and 1, I think it's something like that around there. 22 wins for the younger fighter and 1 for the older one. So yeah, not a great start, and that continues.
No, definitely not. And it's a real shame as well because it was only like a year or so ago we were seeing, well, it was only last year we saw Volk do what he did against Makhachev first time out.
It's crazy. And another mad thing is Israel Adesanya, Kamaru Usman and Volk, I think all won their belts in 2018 or around that time. But they all had, I think, 5 title defences and lost the belt by KO, which all those fighters just seemed untouchable at one time. I remember thinking Volk I was starting to think he's skill-wise one of the best ever MMA fighters, let alone just in that weight class, to go up and fight Islam like he did and make it that competitive against that sort of new style of fight the older generation hasn't seen. But yeah, like you say, this new generation of fighters, the champion just never seems to beat them every time. It seems like this new gen, like Topuria, he started as a jiu-jitsu guy. He wasn't some crazy boxer. He didn't start stand up. It was all jiu-jitsu. His ground game is slick. We saw that when he submitted Bryce Mitchell, but really just getting the chance to show his hands now and delivers one of the most brutal KOs we've seen in a while, to one of the best fighters of all time. So, he can go anywhere now. And he called it all as well. You got to give him credit.
Definitely. So it's interesting as well because, like you said, there was a period of time in which I kind of thought that Volk would retire as a champion. I always thought that. I felt like Volk was that champion, and then Holloway was always that person you fought prior to fighting Volk. However, it is on one hand, although it's very sad to see, it's also probably a good thing as well. It means that the division is going to be a lot more competitive.
Yeah, I mean, that depends if Topuria is going to give anyone a title shot, because the way he's talking, he wants Conor McGregor or no one by the sounds of it, which is an interesting way to go when you first win your belt, especially since Volk was this champion that fought all newcomers. And I feel like we get excited when these new champions come over, but I don't know about you. Obviously, we're big Leon Edwards fans. Middleweight is kind of a bit weird, but I do miss having these sort of champions where they fight 3 times a year, on short notice, on any notice. They'll fight any contender like these champions did, like Izzy, Volk, Usman. And to see these 3 dominant champions lose within a short space of each other, it's just going to be a big change up to the sport. And I don't know about you, but through the week, it just feels like something's happened. Do you know what I mean? It's strange.
Yeah, no, so it's a big deal, definitely. It's not something which I really expected, to be fair. I thought that Volk was going to take this quite comfortably, and I didn't think that Topuria had really been tested. As part of that was what Josh Emmett.
Yeah, that's his hardest fight.
And Josh Emmett is a tough opponent. However, Josh Emmett he's in the top 5. He's not, he's around that number 5 ranking for a reason. Like he's not near that champion status still. So to jump from that to Volk, fair play to him.
Yeah, well, I think going on that sort of topic, we'll start on the main event and make our way downwards. So going on to the co-main event, Robert Whittaker, Paulo Costa put on the fight of the night. In my opinion, one of the fights of the year so far. Really going to war. Paulo Costa, obviously, we spoke last week about him coming back with these new sort of mind coaches to get his head right. Sort of the hardest training camp he's had probably since the Izzy fight. And to see him back and motivated, and let's be real, he fought Robert Whittaker. Sometimes Whittaker, when he turns up, you don't know how on he's going to be, but he fought Robert Whittaker that was like in the zone, and he made it an absolute war. Almost finished him in the first round. That was crazy. Good survival from Robert Whittaker, how he ate that will kick. But firstly, how surprised were you that this didn't get fight of the night? Obviously, Lemos and Mackenzie Dern did, which is just crazy. I don't know how that happened. But what was your overall thoughts on the fight?
Yeah, no, so it's always surprising, especially when you have a fight like this. This is a big fight for a few reasons. Paulo Costa hasn't fought in years. He had not fought in so long, and to have came back at middleweight and fought someone like Robert Whittaker, who admittedly didn't look as good as he normally does in his last fight out. However, in this fight, looked a lot more sharp, a lot better conditioned, and a lot more accurate. It's a massive fight overall. This could have been fight of the night, definitely. It probably should have been.
Yeah.
Paulo Costa's performance, though, although he didn't win the fight, I thought he did very, very well considering it. And I thought particularly his boxing looked particularly clean.
Yeah, I think we mentioned last week how he doesn't, usually when you watch him, he doesn't really have these fundamentals to set up his big strikes. He doesn't really have great accuracy in his shot selection, kind of just wings these shots out there. But I mean, this time he was popping Rob's head back with a jab, standing in range and jabbing with Robert Whittaker isn't easy. We saw Israel Adesanya struggle with mainly that aspect of the fight in their second one. So just to see those improvements, I don't know about you, but I found myself thinking I'm more excited to see what Paulo does next over Robert Whittaker.
Oh, definitely. So, because Paulo's not had too many fights either, that's the thing.
No, there's quite a few guys that he hasn't fought in this weight class.
Do you think that maybe like Paulo could potentially be what makes the middleweight division a bit more interesting?
Yeah, he's so excited.
Just shakes it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because with middleweight, it's one of those divisions. There's a lot of good fighters there. However, they're all very similar, and it's all kind of a middleweight division. Although we've seen, Drakus take the title and Strickland won the title as well. Both things which we would have thought were probably pretty unexpected.
Yeah.
I mean, to see how this division goes, this division could be getting turned upside down, and it could all be by Paulo Costa. We've not seen him in a very long time, and everything he does with his training as well, like it's really interesting. There's a lot of potential for him, really.
Yeah, going next for Paulo Costa, I'd love to see him fight maybe a Jared Cannonier. Imagine Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa. I'd love that fight. So there's a lot of exciting fights. After Imovov's performance against Dilidze the other week as well, I think he can make his way up and start fighting people like Costa and stuff like that. So I think overall the middleweights, it is spicing up a little bit. You've got Brendan Allen coming into the ranking, well, into the top 10 now too. So yeah, there is. It's looking up for the middleweight division after a few years where it was a bit, dodgy.
I think Brendan Allen would be a really interesting one, though. I think that makes a lot of sense as well, because he's been in the UFC for years now as well.
Yeah.
And to fight for Brendan Allen because I think he's number 6 now in like the ranking.
Really? Is he number 6?
Yeah, I think he's so. I think that makes a lot of sense. They're very similar where they're two. Brendan Allen's been fighting a bit more consistently than Costa. So it would be interesting to see how it goes. I think stylistically as well, it would be interesting to see how Paulo would do against somebody who is very much jiu-jitsu based. Yeah. Very much grappling based. He also had that on the feet as well, but I feel like Brendan kind of sets up his grappling.
Yeah, definitely. He got very good at using his striking to set up that grappling. But, Paulo Costa against these sort of guys, you do look at him and think it's going to be hard for these sort of guys like Brendan Allen to beat him, because they won't necessarily take him down. And on the feet, he's a nightmare to deal with. Obviously, he lost that fight to Vettori, but we got to see how powerful he kicks. And, we got to see his kicks in the Whittaker fight. We know how powerful he can be with his hands and the pressure. His cardio looked great. So I think he's stylistically a really bad matchup for a lot of these middleweight fighters. And I think that's why I found myself being really excited. With Whittaker, they probably should do him versus Sean Strickland next. I wouldn't mind seeing the Cannonier rematch either. That fight was a lot closer than people thought. Cannonier did have some good moments, kind of setting the blueprint to turn southpaw and use that lead hand to stop Whittaker's blitz, and that's what Dricus used to drop him as well. So, yeah, maybe that fight would go differently if they run it back again. Just two fighters that is going to be in really exciting fights next, and probably the fight of the card. Really, really enjoyed that one. Moving on to the Geoff Neal and Gary fight. I'm going to let you start on this one because I don't have much to say, to be honest.
No, so it's, in all fairness, this is, on one hand, it was quite a disappointing fight, I felt. I think that Geoff Neal, he's somebody which he should have been looking to really finish Ian Gary. Ian Gary, you can't show him any disrespect in his fighting. He's a very, very good fighter, and he's very much an intelligent fighter as well. He's very smart. He fights the right game. He's not scrappy at all, really. Everything he does, he's a very, very technical fighter. And against somebody like Geoff Neal, he did the right thing. he kind of just circled. Some would say he ran away. I wouldn't necessarily describe it as running away, but more a matter of just managing that distance. When you've got someone like GF with the hands he's got, the last thing you want to be doing is exchanging in the pocket or getting so close that he is able to catch you. On the other hand, though, GF disappointing really.
Mm.
And the reason why is you should be trying to break through, and not just that, but the conduct of him fist bumping mid-fight.
It's like they spent more time punching each other in the hand than they did the face, didn't it? That was so weird.
It's almost like a strange sparring session.
Really. Yeah. Like when someone hits you with a good shot in sparring, you give them a little dap for respect, maybe. Not in a fight where some guy's been walking around with your face printed on a t-shirt where you got arrested. Like, he's got kids. They see that. He was saying how much that motivated him, and didn't even look, in my opinion, it didn't really look like he trained it. He had no game plan. His coaches were screaming at him, saying, fight, stop dapping him up, you're there to fight. It's like he came in and he didn't really even have an idea beforehand how to beat Ian Gary. Would you say that's a fair statement?
So I'm not too sure. I feel like maybe the game plan might have been to land a big shot, although I don't know if because when your coaches are telling you to do something, and you're not doing it, I think he was being given the correct instruction. I think he was being told what to do. I just think it was a matter of he just wasn't putting it together well enough. He didn't really throw very much other than his boxing style. And that boxing style doesn't work against somebody who's fighting like Ian Gary was fighting, somebody who's in and out.
And also, when he did get in close, he just decided to clinch anyway. He was the one engaging in a lot of those clinches, which was just another strange thing.
He engaged in all of them because Ian Gary didn't want to be close to him at all. At no point did Ian Gary want to be anywhere close to clinching distance whatsoever, and that's why he fought the way he did. So to think that when you do land these big shots, you need to just capitalise on it. And it was almost like a bit of it wasn't like a sparring match in the sense that, because it was definitely very competitive. However, like regardless, I think that the way in which you're going to clinch, it's like he didn't want to hurt him.
Yeah,
it was like he really wanted. It was like they were just trying to work on. It's like he's trying to work on his boxing, Ian Gary on his leg kicks.
The one thing Ian Gary was doing really well, I loved his stepping knee. He was using that very well, multiple times landing to the body. It's like a UFC 4 where you're just spamming knees up the middle and an elbow afterward. But, it turns out it's actually quite effective because Ian Gary, that was one of his main weapons. I think one thing people should really think about if they're going to get into training, learn to cut off the ring or the cage, because, all it takes when someone's moving that much, you've got to know how to cut that octagon off. And he wasn't creating any angles whatsoever to try and land those shots. It was all forward plotting movements, which was the main thing why he couldn't get anywhere near Ian Gary. And Ian Gary probably hasn't had much easier fights than that in his whole life. Like, let's be real, he's been fighting in Cage Warriors. He came up, people like Gabe Green and stuff were able to really land on him. And, just a really disappointing fight. Maybe Neil thought he was going to stand and try and finish him. That's the way Ian Gary made it sound. But yeah, I wasn't happy with this fight. And then Ian Gary shushing the crowd afterwards, like, he didn't just run away for 3 rounds just to rub it in a bit more. Just really feels like I wasted 15 minutes of my life watching that fight, to be honest.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I can't really critique Ian Gary for what he did. He did his game plan, and he was allowed to do it as well. That was completely allowed. GFNO allowed him to do that for 15 minutes. And the whole sparring issue of respect is not a good indication, really, because GFNO is so much better than that as well. GFNO should be his hardest fighter.
Yeah, definitely.
He is a established, absolute killer of a fighter. And to have done that, really, and when your corner's telling you, dap him up afterwards, not now, you're in a fight, you need to be listening to that. It is overall very disappointing. I think he called out Kobe.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right direction to go if Kobe will actually take it. I can't see Kobe will be jumping at the fact to try and fight a young, undefeated prospect, but I'd rather take that fight than the Shavkat fight, let's be real.
Yeah, and who did he call out Kobe? Was it like Wonder Boy?
Yeah. He'd probably call out MVP if he beats Kevin Holland. Imagine just any wrestler in the division is going to be grasping that fight. I bet Kobe is that's the fight he'll probably aim for, him or Wonder Boy, but I think you've got to give him Ian Gary. If he wants to be a contender, then you've got to give Kobe one of these guys. He got gifted a title shot, now he's got to do the UFC a favour and fight prospect. That's the way it should be. I
mean, a fight, I know this hasn't been brought up, but a fight I'd like to maybe potentially see is Wonder Boy versus Gary.
Yeah.
I think that might make a lot of sense stylistically.
Could be a bit boring, maybe.
It could be, or it could be very technical.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think that stylistically, that could be a very interesting technical matchup.
Similar to the Darren Till Wonderboy fight when they fought. Obviously, I think Ian Gary is a bit more clean than Darren Till on the feet, but I think it would be the same sort of stylistic matchup. And that was a decent fight.
And it makes a lot of sense as well, because this would really be what the Jeff Neal fight was supposed to be like. Jeff Neal fight is supposed to be that test. That's somebody who's been there for years. That's somebody who's been to see how good you actually really are. And obviously with Jeff Neal, he didn't put the work in on the night. Or not that he didn't put the work in on the night, but he didn't perform on the night how he should have.
To be fair, that's actually a really good fight. I actually do like that fight, Wonderboy and Gary.
I just don't want to see Kobe steamrolling though.
Steam Wonderboy or
Gary. Yeah, Gary, because there's a possibility that might happen.
I mean, we haven't seen Gary wrestle yet, have we? So.
No, we haven't. And although Kobe did look poor in his last fight, there could have been multiple reasons behind that. There could have been, and if you look at the whole build-up to the conference, I think that would be an interesting one. However, if they do fight, it would be interesting to see how it goes, and it'd be interesting to see the fan reaction as well.
Yeah. The fan reaction, if they would take Kobe's side, or I think Ian Gary would still be booed more than Kobe Cumberland, which is crazy to say at this point. But maybe if the UFC do want to try and get the fans back on side with Ian Gary, I don't know. What's your actual thoughts on him? Do you hate him as much as everyone else? What would it take for you just to be a proper fan of Ian Gary?
I don't necessarily have anything against. It's just certain behaviours.
Yeah.
Although, in all fairness to Ian Gary, I do respect that more than somebody like Kobe, because he has backed up every fight so far. So far, that is. Kobe is fighting these fighters who, with the exception of Leon Edwards, and I mean, Masvidal was
washed.
I don't. Well,
he was washed.
He was a bit past it.
Yeah.
He's not picking these top fighters really at the time, other than the Leon Edwards fight. I mean, even calling out Wonderboy to fight the UFC champion, and then call out Wonderboy, who is a veteran of the sport. However, he's not a contender at all.
No, not really.
I think that I don't know. I really don't know. I don't have anything against it. I do respect it, but at the same time, a lot of it's media, a lot of it's fans. What happens in someone's personal life is what happens in someone's personal life.
MMA fans are mental, aren't they? It's crazy.
But it's his conduct as well, with the mugshots as well.
And sending like defamation lawsuits to people, like Sean Strickland, even the MMA guru apparently received something. So, just none of that, right? Your job is to go out there and beat people up. Go out there and do that. That's the way you prove them wrong. But just the last point before we move on, Demetrius Johnson tweeted at the end of the second round saying that if this was me, I'd be shown a yellow card, because I think in one championship, if they have a system where if you're not engaged in a fight enough, you get shown a yellow card or some sort of thing that takes away a point. Any chance you'd want to see that in the UFC?
I think that'd be great. I really do.
Yeah,
that'd be very, very exciting. Even maybe during the the Derrida's fight when he had recently with Almeida. Maybe if there was a rule in which they'd have to bring you up even if you're controlling them, but you're not doing anything. Just something I think they should bring back rules where there aren't rounds and just fight till no, I don't think they should do that.
That would be fun.
It's all a matter of how you view it, though, isn't it, really? What do you think that MMA should be?
Yeah, it is. Getting on to the next fight, Merab Dashvili out wrestling the Olympic gold medalist Henry Cejudo. Domination over 3 rounds. There was a little moment where he got caught with a big left hook in the first round, which maybe that is a weakness in Dashvili's game. We saw that with Marlon Moraes too. But overall, Dashvili to outrun, picked up Cejudo, ran him across the octagon. He pretty much took his gold medal away and put it around his waist, just like he did with O'Malley's jacket at that time.
It's pretty disrespectful, wasn't it, really?
It was. I felt so sorry for Henry, man.
I think Dashvili should, maybe, if he ever does retire and he's still got, a little bit of energy, to join the WWE. Just something like that. Because the antics he's up to, all of that stuff, to be able to walk someone like that around. In all fairness to Cejudo, I thought in the first round he looked really good.
Yeah, he did.
I thought he looked really, really good. I thought that he looked really strong. Dashvili, it was interesting because normally we see him kind of explode from the start. He's continuously just sprinting all throughout the fight. In the first fight, if you look at Cejudo, he's doing quite well. Dashvili isn't fighting at a normal pace.
I I think he was worried about. He didn't think he could go out there and just start mauling Henry. You could tell that wasn't the game plan.
And that's a lot of respect there as well.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't do that with any opponent really. And Cejudo, we all know how established Cejudo is. We all know he was former champion. He came back from retirement and then retired again. We all know how much of a threat he is. Although Dashvili, second round, third round, very dominant.
When he had him in the guillotine, just screaming and laughing at Zuckerberg, that was just such a funny moment. I might get that as a frame.
Yeah, do you know what his obsession is with Zuckerberg?
No, I think that's really a bit strange. Yeah,
no, because he's talking to him and he's holding him down and he's just shouting at him. You can see Zuckerberg's clapping as well. It's probably the most human thing you've ever seen him do.
Yeah, Zuckerberg didn't have a good night. He had a good night up until the Volkanovski fight because him being in the corner and awkwardly trying to take Volkanovski's fight gear when his coaches were taking off. I don't know if you saw that clip, but yeah, that was just hella awkward.
It's impressive. Really impressive. You can't discredit him at all.
I'll go out and say I think he's the next bantamweight champion. I do not see how Sean O'Malley deals with that, and obviously, if his only chance is to catch him on an entry,
like a knee,
something like that, because Dashvili to pick up Henry Cejudo and run him to Dana White, that's like Chimaev, what he was doing when Chimaev was doing that to people like Lei Liang, everyone was getting so gassed about it. Dashvili just did it to a gold medalist double champ. It's crazy the level of skill that takes. And the cardio, he gassed out Henry Cejudo in a 3-round fight. Ray Longo's coach said that he did heavy sparring with Aljamain Sterling for 3 5-minute rounds before that. So coming in after having pretty much a 3-round fight beforehand, maybe even. So, at 5-round paces, he just breaks people. We saw what he did to Peter Yan. I think he's the best bantamweight on the planet. I think Sandhagen might have a bit of a better chance than O'Malley, but I don't see any bantamweight in the world beating him.
Yeah, it's really awkward because it's not necessarily a matter of Sean O'Malley not have the skill to do it. I don't know how he deals with it.
You just don't get enough as a striker. You look at that and you think, where do you even get the time to find that knockout? Like Marlon Moraes, one of the most dangerous and quick strikers we've ever seen in the UFC. When he was in his prime, he almost caught Dashvili. There are holes in Dashvili's game you can take, but it's going to have to take an absolute picture-perfect performance from one of these strikers to do it.
Yeah, and like you said, it's all about catching an open. I think that it is possible. I think the height as well could potentially do something, because we look at this bantamweight division, there aren't many fighters as tall as O'Malley is, really.
But being taller also, it's easier to get in on that double leg takedown.
Well, it is, but it also kind of gives you that range.
Yeah.
And it's all a matter of, because from the get-go, he's kind of going to need to be looking to keep him at bay. And I don't know whether you just try and push him away with like a kick or something.
Do you even throw kicks?
Yeah, because he could catch it.
Yeah, what do you do? For me, you got to look for that big left hook off the first exchange, or a knee as he's coming in. So I think O'Malley will have a chance to knock him out every single round, but that's what people were saying about Khabib and Conor and stuff like that. We've seen this matchup 100 times over, and very, very little or often does the striker win. What
about the grappling move, the jiu-jitsu? O'Malley's got not bad jiu-jitsu at all.
He does have good jiu-jitsu.
And Dashvili, obviously the submission threats there. We did see
not
it.
Really. Oh, kind of, yeah. Against Henry, it looked a bit better, but he hasn't been out here subbing guys, has he?
At the same time, though, if you have very high-level jiu-jitsu and you're fighting against somebody who hasn't been subbing guys, in all fairness, yes, it was a very, very threatening attack. There's nothing to say that you can't potentially do bits on the ground.
But O'Malley would have to be a lot better than what we think for him to be able to submit. And there is a chance that because we haven't seen it really, submitted Takanogomi. Takanogomi must have been 60 years old when that happened. Not literally, but you know what I'm saying. But yeah, we've heard about his jiu-jitsu. He's done some underground jiu-jitsu tournaments and stuff. But to sub someone with that level of pressure, you need to be elite. You need to be able to maybe reverse or sweep him, or you need to be able to do a big move to try and get him from, because he will just put his head on your chest and just rain down ground and pound the whole fight.
It's all so hypothetical, isn't it? Like, it's all so hypothetical. We don't know that this is happening at all. Like, however, there is also a part of me which thinks that, like, you look at Leon Edwards in his wrestling. You know, who would have thought that? Like, obviously, you know, you might have heard, like, obviously, we know what Leon Edwards could do on the ground if you look back at him historically, like, because he's been around for so many years. He's had so many fights. There've been so many instances where he has had to use his wrestling, or not had to, or where he has used his grappling.
He chose to.
He chose to. That's what I mean. Like, he has chose to use his grappling. Obviously, we haven't seen it as much recently because of how good he is on the feet.
And how many wrestlers is that? He's just been defending takedowns for about 4 years straight now.
We haven't really seen O'Malley that much until he's very fresh into it, really.
Peter Yan took him down about 100 times, though.
Well,
Peter Yan took him down so many times. Picked him up, slammed him, tripped him, all sorts. So that is a sort of indication. Peter Yan, we saw how badly he got out-wrestled by Dashvili. Obviously, MMA math doesn't always work like that, but you know, you can kind of look at like the stylistic matchup and how it is likely to play out from those sort of fights.
It's so interesting, and it's such a long discussion to have. So.
Yeah, obviously this pod isn't for that one, so we should get on to the next fight. Both of us, you know, we were big on this underdog on that Anthony Hernandez hype train. Both of us predicted a second round sub, I'm pretty sure. It came in and, just overall took some big shots, laughing the whole time, really just having fun in there. And he's becoming kind of like a prospect killer since that Kevin Holland lost years ago. He's just been on a tear and he's grappling nasty. I'm just so impressed by Hernandez.
Yeah, it's so offensive. That's the thing. It's so aggressive.
Yeah.
Like, he's on you from the get go. And I think what I might have said was, I don't know if I said this on the pod or whether I said this to you separately. Yeah, with Kopylov, he's quite patient and he's quite technical. Yeah. And when he does piece it together, he pieces together some big shots. However, he's kind of waiting for you a lot of the time. He's kind of seeing what you're doing and he's working around it. With Anthony Hernandez, he doesn't really give you the chance to do that at all. And just prior to getting the sub, he's laughing and nodding his head, and he's got a grin. And Kopylov is a pretty intimidating opponent. I think, you know, to throw kicks like that and to have kicks that powerful, like that's pretty terrible.
The noises how his body kicks, some of them he hit Hernandez with. Hernandez he's a tough guy as well, isn't he?
He is a tough guy, and he's also a Sambo champion as well. Kopylov.
Yeah.
So which makes it even more impressive being able to get him down and being able to play with him on the ground, because to beat a Sambo champion, Sambo's like, it's like MMA really, and it's a mix between like kickboxing and that kind of.
And they have so many Sambo fights, these guys, that, you know, I think Islam or Khabib, it was one of the two, had 200 Sambo fights before going to MMA, and that's pretty much having 200 amateur MMA fights. Like, how much experience that is to going into MMA core. That is just such an advantage over these guys where amateur MMA isn't even really a thing yet, kind of just coming around now. But you said to me that you think Hernandez might be your favourite fighter, and I was thinking the other day, who is he your favourite fighter? Who is your favourite fighter?
No, that's a really hard one because I like all sorts of different fighters for all sorts of different reasons. There's the excitement of the fighter, you know, which how entertaining of it to watch, and then there's the personality, and a lot of the time it's kind of a combination of them all, really. I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people would say Conor McGregor a few years ago, because obviously you had his personality, you had his trash talking, and then you had him fight.
Delivered every time.
He was doing unprecedented things. You know, you look at his Aldo fights, all of these things. It's very easy to say somebody like Leon Edwards, and to be fair, it probably would be. But I also like the Chimaevs and whatnot. Like I know that there have been some things which have happened with Chimaev, but if you actually like look at his story, like what he came from, everything he does is like through good intention, and it's a hard one really. I'd have to like properly think about how to answer it. So but I'd say Leon Edwards just because of the adversity he's faced, like in regards to the whole like COVID-19 situation.
Yeah, that's such a long drawn out story because of all of that.
He had like 5 or 6 negative things happen to him, and then obviously there was. So I'm gonna go Leon, but you'd have to come back to me another day.
It changes all the time.
So many different people as well, like different reasons. Why are you?
See, I kind of like the Brazilians that are just like really stoked. Like Alex Pereira, Gregor Rodriguez, Figueiredo, all of them sort of guys. They're my favourite to watch. They just bring such an intensity to the sport. It's like it's one of those fighters that give you like butterflies before you watch them. So yeah, probably them sort of guys. Yeah, they just scare me. You know what I mean? Like I think being stood in the octagon, we're looking at Alex Pereira and his whole team stay down before the fight. I'd probably walk out.
Well, I mean, it's a bit like Anderson Silva.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he was kind of like I feel like him and like Wanderlei.
Yeah, Wanderlei.
But I feel like with Anderson Silva, there was something about it. It was like almost dark. You know what I mean? Like, it's just something kind of going on in the background, which made it which made it even worse. Rather than just the aura. That's it. The aura, rather than the fight. Obviously, it was terrifying. However, with Wanderlei, it's more like, all right, this man's going to my head.
Kill me. He was inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame this weekend as well. So big congrats to Wanderlei Silva. Didn't have the best UFC career, but put on some of the best Pride fights we've seen. Going back to Anthony Hernandez, overall, just insane grappling skills. Going to get a big round opponent next. I'm sure we're all expecting that. Not going to spend loads of time going over the predictions. It's quite a big main card for UFC Mexico. The first fight on the card, Manuel Torres against Chris Duncan. Stylistically, just all around maybe like a stand-up sort of Muay Thai fight. Both of these guys like a scrap. Manuel Torres last year again, one of the most brutal knockouts I've ever seen. That stepping elbow against I think it was Morta, and he brings just this finishing ability like not a lot do. He's long and rangy for the weight class, an animal as well. But leaves his chin in the air. I think that's the main takeaway I saw from him from his from doing my research. And Chris Duncan, he's a tough guy. It's going to be a good fight. What way are you leaning?
So I'm going to go Chris Duncan in this one. I think that Torres has got that finishing ability. We've seen it a few times. With Torres, though, I feel like you said, he leaves his chin in the air, and he's almost a bit too. I feel like he's a bit too reckless, really.
Yeah.
Because the way he comes in, he's always looking for that reach. You know what I mean? He's always got his arms out. He's always looking for the range. And his build is quite good for that division. For lightweight, he is quite. I don't know if I'd say lanky, but he's very much like quite an imposing.
Stocky,
figure.
Yeah, he's a big dude, isn't he?
So with him though, however, like he said, he leaves his chin in the air, and I think that this is a kind of fighter which Chris Duncan does well against. Chris Duncan, he's very patient and he utilises all of his work.
Yeah, he does. Knees, elbows, all of it,
and the kicks as well. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. He's going to be throwing all sorts of kicks and putting him back. The only thing which I think is going to be causing him issues is that if he's not able to keep Torres back.
Yeah.
And I think that is a possibility. However, with Duncan, his movement, he's just going to be circling the whole time. He's going to be circling, he's going to be putting up bar. I don't know if he's going to finish him, but I'm going to go Duncan decision. I think Torres is going to have a really hard time in this fight. I really do.
See, I think Chris Duncan is probably, if you're a betting man, one of the smart underdogs to bet on this whole card. But saying that, I am still going to go with Manuel Torres. I just think when it's a stand-up fight like this and it's not going to engage in grappling much, I kind of always lean the guy because let's be real, their striking skills are quite close, and I just feel like Manuel Torres is way more of a finishing ability. We see a lot of first-round finishes. And he's always coming forward looking to land those massive shots. And Chris Duncan kind of takes a little bit to wear himself into the fight. He's not the fastest of starters. He's, in my opinion, quite a slow, methodical fighter. His strikes don't come at the fastest speeds. He doesn't hit the hardest. He's just, a really tough guy. We saw that in his Contender Series fight, coming back from being knocked down. But I just think Manuel Torres is just going to be putting too much pressure and too much damage. I'm going to go with a second round TKO.
I do think with Chris Duncan's his head movement in particular, he's very slow.
Yeah, I just don't think he's necessarily fought someone who's going to really go forward and try and find his chin. I think he fought was it Muzikhanov or someone like that in London. I was there, so I should know. Asmarov. So I think that guy broke his hand in the first round. Literally couldn't even block, couldn't throw it, and still managed to drag him out to for a decision. And Chris Duncan had plenty of opportunities to finish him. Beating Omar Morales in kind of a, it was an okay fight, kind of holding him against the fence. Omar Morales is like a 40-year-old man, shouldn't even be in the UFC anymore, probably with the losing streak he's on. So I just think he hasn't really fought anyone that's going to really try and look for that chin and try and take his head off at every moment. So I'm interested to see how it plays out. I do think Chris Duncan, if he can wear into the fight and take these shots, then I do think he's got a very good chance of winning. But have you got?
No. You say that, like, but you say there's no one who's tried to take his head off. I mean, you look at Ashman's, like 5 of his 7 wins have been by finish.
Yeah, but he could only throw kicks.
Yeah.
It's just when someone's only trying to kick you in the head, it's not hard.
No, you are right, but it's still somebody trying to take your head off.
Yeah, he was trying to take his head off, but he just didn't. He couldn't do it with the weapons he was dealt with. With a broken arm, you're not going to knock someone out.
I think this is a comfortable fight for Duncan. I really do.
Comfortable is a bit crazy, but fair enough. Going on to the next fight, Yasmin. How do I say this? Yasmin Jalgari. Yeah. Anyway, fighting Sam Hughes. I'll just call her Yasmin. In my opinion, this is a reasonably easy fight to call. Yasmin's very technical. Really good prospect. We've been hearing about her for a while. Did lose her last fight by knockout, but sometimes that just happens when she fought Gomez, who's such a big, powerful striker. But we've seen how good Yasmin Javieri's striking is, beating Estela Nunes in the stand-up pretty comfortably by TKO after a dodgy first round. Estela Nunes, a 2-time Muay Thai world champion as well, so being able to just stand and outstrike that level of striker. Sam Hughes for me is just too basic for someone who's a specialist, and I think that's going to show. I'm going Yasmin Javieri by decision.
Yeah, so this is interesting. Initially I was thinking to myself Sam Hughes. However, looking at how Sam Hughes has been performing, other than her most recent fight, she kind of got grappled the entire time. She did win it on decision, in all fairness to her. However, for the most part, like you said, she is very basic. And although Jarecki did lose her last fight by finish, very quick as well, it was 20 seconds or so, it does happen every so often. Jarecki, though, is a finisher.
Yeah.
She has finished so many of her opponents, and to do that, like in a female UFC division, which there aren't many UFC fighters in the women's division who do finish other fighters. That's just how it is. It's very, very dangerous. She's a very, very dangerous opponent. She said she's going to finish this in the first round.
Yeah.
And I think there's a possibility she will. Sam Hughes, she has some fundamentals which are pretty solid. Like, she's not had a great run so far. Her record's 8-5. However, she is very, very aggressive, especially with the wrestling. She's very big into the clinching. She does shoot a lot, as she does use her boxing. However, I think that doing that against somebody who is also going to be doing something very similar, somebody who is also going to be on you and aggressively, I can see her getting finished.
I just think she's a veteran and she's fundamentally safe enough where she can avoid getting finished. I think if she does get finished, it will be kind of later rounds, maybe just a ground and pound or something like that.
Potentially so. Like they both have the potential to ground and pound. They're both on. Like if you look at a lot of their fights, they're so explosive. They're on you continuously. There's not really. We're not seeing a lot of jiu-jitsu happening. We're not seeing a lot of necessarily submission offense. A lot of it is just hard ground and pound. I think Yasmin could potentially secure an early finish, second round.
Yeah.
This is going to be a good fight, though. This could be a war, in fairness. It really could. Like, I know you don't agree with that. I can see it. But
I just, not going to lie, I just don't rate Sam Hughes. I don't like to sit here and hate on fights, but I'm going to be honest. And Sam Hughes has really not impressed me so far. But, she's tough. I said she'll make it to a decision, so I can't not rate her as much as you, right?
No,
I'm joking.
It's just predictions.
Yeah. Going on, Raul Rojas Jr. against Ricky Tarrisos. Tarrisos looked really good and tough. Since coming into UFC, kind of had some dodgy performances. Just looks like there's something not quite right. Maybe in his camp, he's not really inviting the war like he was on Tough, where Raul Rojas is going to force him into that straight away. I like this fight for Rojas. There's a high possibility he might gas himself out, but I think from the minute this fight starts, he's going to just be on Ricky, dominating him. It just depends if he can get through that mauling or not at the start.
That's the thing. It's all a matter of how he does from the start. Rojas, from the get-go, he's always on you. He's constantly on you. And a lot of reason that's why a lot of these guys are getting signed, especially because he's 19.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I know he was 18 last year, so he must be 19.
It's mad to think we're older than him.
No, it really is. He's on you from the get-go, and he's very exciting, and he will strike you. One thing I will say is that I feel like with Turkish, he's a very, very tough opponent, and it's hard to finish him.
Yeah.
And it's going to be hard to finish him. And I also think as well, his gas tank, I would say, is significantly better than Rojas's. Cardio is something which you can build all year round, though.
Yeah.
So for all we know, he could be coming into this fight the fittest he's ever been.
Yeah.
And he could be on top of that. And that's something which you're likely going to have to be working. That's something you're likely going to work on, especially after that Rodriguez fight. His last fight ended very quickly, so we didn't get to see what his gas tank was like in that one. Very exciting KO as well against both fighters, which were going for it.
Terence Mitchell, he isn't great, but he always comes out hunting, that's for sure.
With Turkish, he's somebody which he will just keep fighting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He will fight for the entire 15 minutes, regardless. Looking at Rojas, in the Rodriguez fight, there was that submission threat from Rodriguez, however, he wasn't able to pull it off. I think Turkish, he might be able to do it. I really do let him the stages. I think the first round or so, Rojas is going to be on top of him. I think there's going to be a lot of transitions. I think it might be quite scramby at times.
Yeah.
I really do. However, I think he's going to get pretty tired towards the end of the second round. I think the third round he's going to be at the sub. Rojas is going to shoot for it, and he's going to get himself in a bad position. I really do. I think it's going to be a good fight, though.
Yeah. I'm going Raul Rojas. I think Christian Rodriguez obviously getting that win over Rojas is probably a good thing for Rojas. After being that age, you can't blame him for going out there dominating the first round and then just gassed out. Christian Rodriguez missed weight by like 5 pounds in that fight as well, coming down a weight class, just much bigger guy. And he also beat Cameron Simon as well, so he came down and missed weight in that fight. He came down a weight class, missed weight, killed 2 prospects hypes, and then moved back up, which is just, annoying. A lot of fans won't like him because of that, but he's a very high-level fighter, probably a higher level fighter than Ricky Trujillos. And for that reason, I'm going Raul Rojas, and I just think the intensity he brings, he would have made the right adjustments since that Rodriguez fight. He's not just going to run out and just try and finish straight away and get gassed out. I don't think if he can't get the finish, I think he'll slow the pace down. And that's why I think he'll get the second round sub. But this kid's really good on the ground and seems so strong for his age. And I think Ricky, just the way he hasn't really been inviting the fights like he was a bit earlier on in his career, it doesn't really seem like he is the sort of fighter that's craving that dig deep fight where that's the way he was winning on tough, that's what he wanted to do, so that's the way he was breaking you. And if you can't do that, I don't think he's going to break Raul Rojas. So yeah, I'm going to go second round sub. Next fight on the card, what is it? Let me get the card back up. Next fight on the card, Daniel Zulisberger versus Francisco Prado. Real interesting one. Daniel Zulisberger, big favourite, but I kind of like Francisco Prado's chances. I don't know about you.
I do as well. I think that Zulisberger, I don't think he's... with Prado, he's kind of like... He's known for his first round finishes, and he had that fight against Jay Milaki, which, in fairness, he wasn't really given an opportunity to show much of his skill set. No. I think that Jay Milaki, we all know how good a fighter he is. He's very, very strong. He's not been in the UFC for too long, but he is very clear to see where his skill level is at. With his recent fights, though, like if you look at him outside of the UFC as well, I know that they're not necessarily the most
first level
competition. He's still finishing them all. And if you look at his most recent fight as well against Azazar, we bring up Jay Milaki because that's the one where you can really kind of like when you see it 3 rounds, you can see. If you're looking at his other side, he
beat him up bad
very quickly.
And as a time, before that weird little incident at Fight Island where he got banned for a couple of years, he was an animal, 12-0, all finishes, finishing everyone in the first round. So he just went out there and ran through Azatar.
Yeah, literally, and it was brutal as well. It was absolutely brutal, just the pace he was putting on him, beating him down. I feel like Zulisberger, he warmed up into fights a bit too slowly.
Yeah. I
feel like the first round, we look at him a lot of the time, he's kind of counter-striking. He's kind of looking to kind of gauge where it's to. And I think that's not something you can do with Prado. You can't counter-strike those shots because all it takes is to get caught with 1 or 2 of those shots, and that's it over. I think I'm going to go first round finish for Prado. I know that's quite like a outrageous statement, really. especially considering how big of a dog he probably is. However,
he was a big one. I checked earlier.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's bad, but I got that same feeling, you know.
I also think though, Huber can warm into it,
or
if he's able to warm into it a bit quicker, and if he's on it from the get-go, then he wins.
Probably a decision.
Yeah, and I think it'd be a relatively close one as well. In fairness,
that's pretty much you're spot on with the way I'm thinking about it too. I think Crowder, he has to get the finish in the first round, early second round, because Zellweger just really warms into the fight. He does just take over the fight. It's such an awkward style to fight. I think he's lightweight as well, and he's just massive. It's so tall. Just seems huge. I don't know how he sort of fills out that body for that weight class. But Prado, he really looks to get on the inside. You can see the kind of like Mike Tyson little body movements he does, and you know, he can find Daniel Zellweger's chin because he does leave it up in the air. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna join you. I'm gonna go first round knockout as well. I think if it does go past the first round, Daniel Zellweger will just warm into the fight and take over. But yeah, I think, you know, we might as well pick a big underdog on the card. Getting into the co-main event, the first rematch of the card. Great fight, stylistically. Good to see Brian Ortega back. Just seems to be stuck in the top 5, even no matter how much he fights. But after such a long layoff, I just really struggled to see him beating Yair Rodriguez, especially how the first fight was kind of playing out. I don't know what your thoughts are on the rematch.
So it's an interesting one. It's a really big fight to come back to. It's a shame that the first fight did end the way it did. At the end of the day, when there is an injury, there is an injury. Yair Rodriguez has fought maybe 2 or 3 times since, and this is Brian Ortega's first fight back. And you have to think as well, was Yair Rodriguez's last fight against Volk?
Yeah.
You know, his last fight was against a decent-looking Volk.
Well, that was probably, in my opinion, that's the best Volk to look. The first fight after the Islam fight. So you just put a masterclass on Yair.
Definitely so. Like, I mean, we look at how he was fighting last time. He wasn't doing poorly in the feet. However, with Yair, there's always that risk. And I think with how the last fight was playing out, I thought he was doing well on the feet, to be fair. He was doing well on the feet. However, what looked like may have been causing Yair problems, it only lasted a round, so it's really hard to definitively tell. But I think it would have been wrestling.
Yeah.
Like, you look at him against Volk, you know, Volk's wrestling, we all know how good Volk's wrestling is. And it was causing him issues. And if you can control Yair, that's the best way to go about it, really, because it's not somebody you really want to fight with feet. Yair Rodriguez, he's up there for a reason. He was interim for a reason.
Yeah.
He is brutal on the feet.
It's so nasty.
And he has such a variation of weapons, from the elbows, spinning elbows, to the kicks, to whatever it may be. Brian Ortega is tough. I don't know if he's tough enough to take a Yair Rodriguez spinning elbow.
I think he might be.
I don't know.
I can see a head kick.
A head kick, yeah, but a lot of fighters can take head kicks.
No, but like clean shin to the top of the head. It's going to have to be something special to get Ortega out of there. Or he could just maybe submit him again. Because let's be real. Alright, fair enough, it was an injury, but Yair Rodriguez, you know, was cranking on that, putting a lot of pressure on that shoulder. It wasn't just the fact that he took him down and maybe his arm just popped out of place. Yair Rodriguez has a nasty jiu-jitsu game too.
This is 5 rounds as well.
Yeah, which it's a lot different. You can tire him out in a 5-round fight. We saw him starting to break against Volkanovski, and even in like the Jeremy Stevens fight a few years back, it started slowing down. It just throws everything with such power. He will naturally slow down. But for me, I think the smart. I'm going. There's a high chance, like through this 5 rounds, Ortega can just get him down and put him in one of these submissions. But I'm going to go Yair Rodriguez decision. I think he's going to bust up Ortega. Ortega's going to have to clinch and just try hold on for a lot of it, because I think there'll be a lot of like stalling against the cage from Ortega, but he's going to be getting pieced up on the feet. It's just, or maybe a late finish, 4th round, 5th round finish, but it's going to be later rounds if it does happen.
It's really hard, because for feel like with a lot of fights, with Yair, you kind of always think of finish, aren't you? But with how Brian Ortega is, I think he's going to wrestle well. However, I think it's what happens on the feet is what's going to win it for you.
Yeah.
I think he's just going to be landing the cleaner shots and more accurate, and I think probably in just a not necessarily like a what's the word, like a flurrious quantity, not like these big flurries strikes, but just a greater frequency.
Yeah,
just more of them. He's going to be able to pick them apart in a very aggressive Rodriguez way.
But even in the first fight, you kind of saw that start happening in the first round. Started hitting him with big 1-2s, the head kicks and the leg kicks started to come close. I think he hit him with a head kick right near the end of the first round, just before the injury. So, yeah, I agree with that statement, really.
Yeah, I'm going to go decision. I just think it's going to be. I think it's going to last long enough for it to get.
He's going to brutalise him. No, he's going to look like a changed man after that fight.
I don't know though, because I think they will be. I don't know if it's going to be dominant. That's the thing.
It might not be dominant, but the damage he's going to put on Ortega.
The damage, definitely.
That's what I mean. His face is going to be rearranged afterwards. All the elbows and kicks and stuff that are going to land. He's going to probably be leaving there with a bit of a concussion, but he's one of the best chins we've seen in the UFC. That obviously we saw the beating he took from Max Holloway back in the day. But yeah, going on to the main event, the rematch I'm probably a bit more excited for. Brandon Moreno against Brandon Royval, both Mexican-based fighters. Main event in this, probably a massive moment in their lives. And they both fight like it too. Put on wars, so scrambly. Everywhere the fight goes, it's just such entertaining scrambles between these two, or striking exchanges between these two. I'm leaning Moreno. Obviously, winning the first fight. Did actually get put in quite a bit of trouble in that first fight. The grappling was playing out in such an interesting way. I think Moreno has improved so much since that. They're obviously having the trilogy with Davis and Figueiredo. Having those wars, that would probably take a few years off your life, so it will be interesting to see how he looks after being in so many wars. Even his last fight against Panjota was an absolute bloodbath, so maybe Royval will be the more youthful guy, and it might be a bit of a downslide for Moreno from here, but I see him winning this fight, personally.
How do you think he wins it, though?
I think he's going to sub in.
Okay, this is interesting, because I feel like when we look at Royval and Moreno, they kind of finish everybody other than champions.
Yeah.
And it's mad, really, because they both have the potential to finish. But I don't know if they have the potential to finish each other.
Yeah.
Like, against Figueiredo and Pantoja, they just don't do it. However, they do it against everyone else in that division. I think the first fight was crazy, really.
Yeah. The pace of it was nuts.
And it's a shame it only lasted like 5 minutes as well, because I feel like there probably would have been a sub at one point or another. Like, I didn't really know what was going on the ground.
No, it was mental. Flyweights just move at a crazy pace, don't they?
Yeah, it could have been like a twister, I reckon.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some things which I've definitely never seen before happen. However, so this fight, I think on the feet, Royval probably is the better fighter.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah, you reckon?
I think Moreno's boxing is just too clean.
But they're similar, but they're different. You know what I mean?
I think Royval, for him, it's all risk to take that reward. You know what I mean? He's going to just chuck himself in the firing range to try and land a crazy spinning elbow, a crazy knee. He is just such an unorthodox fighter on the feet. Moreno's so tight and technical, one of the best boxers we've got. Just that jab, and it's just so nasty. And the elbows himself, he's just come such a long way since that first fight and had so many good striking matchups. I think the skill from that first fight would have lapped him over. And Moreno is probably one of the better flyweights we've ever seen. Just the competitiveness he's been able to put on and such great fights. I don't know if Royval's going to be able to deal with the fight anywhere it goes, to be honest.
I think I don't know. I don't know if I'm having a hard time calling this one, because I think that Moreno probably edges it, and I think that either have the potential to sub or finish each other. I don't know if they will. I don't know if they'll just outlast it. I think that this is going to be quite a scrambly fight.
Yeah.
I think he is going to have some success on the feet. I think that, like you said, with how he is quite erratic in some of his movements and how it's a little bit less clean, I think that's going to lead to a lot of what happens on the ground. I think that potentially, he could land something and catch him and maybe drop him a little bit. and then it takes the ground. I think that this is going to start off very like hectic on the feet.
Yeah.
I really do, and I think it's going to kind of go to the ground every single round. It's really hard to call because if this is a 3-round fight, I'd be like, all right, well, Marino decision.
Yeah. To be fair, now I'm thinking about it, probably will be a decision.
I just think that they'd be able. I just think they're going to be able to like escape it. I think it's going to be super scrambly. I really do.
Yeah. Same. Just a crazy pace fight, 5 rounds.
And I think even if it's not necessarily super scrambly, there's just going to be so much transitioning.
Yeah.
Like, even if they're not getting up and even if they're not reversing, they're just going to be continuously, like, there's no point will any of this grappling, I don't think, anyway, will be very much a matter of someone being in a very dominant position.
But we saw Panjota able to hold Royval down for most of their fight. And although that is kind of the route he went with Brendan Moreno as well, it's crazy how Panjota is just out there just smoking all these guys in the division, just by the way, just how good he is. But going back to the fight, he wasn't able to do the same thing to Moreno. Moreno had his own bits of success on the ground with Panjota where Royval didn't. I think just the wrestling is a bit more like there. He's got a bit more of the strength and just the fundamental sort of grappling, which I think will win those exchanges. And that's why I think I can see like a 4th round sub for Moreno.
Do you not think maybe that like with Pantoja doing that is very different to Moreno doing that? What do you think that is?
No, I do think it is, but I just think we saw like fundamental wise, Moreno had way more ways of getting up from the bottom and way more sweeps and reversals to get his own good positions on a dominant grappler like Panjota, where it looked like Royval was kind of lost when he got taken down by Panjota.
Do you think it's going to be more a matter of, rather than him reversing into these like dominant positions, it's going to be more a matter of survival?
Well, no, because I think he'll be engaging in a lot of the wrestling. So I think Royval will be in that survival mode more than Moreno. I think he'll be the one causing a lot of the crazy scrambles because he is that guy. As soon as his butt touches the floor, you don't know what direction. Both of them are like it, to be fair. So
okay. Yeah, no, this is an interesting one. I'm going to go decision, really. I am. I think that I don't want to say he's going to outlast it because I don't think that's the right way to go about it. How I think that what's going to happen is I think the first minute or so of every single round is going to be super scrappy on the feet, super exciting, super technical. And then I think that Moreno is going to go to the ground, and I think Moreno's going to have slightly better on the ground.
Yeah.
It could be a matter of Royval taking decision mode because if Royval's landing these big Florida strikes, whether they're more technical or not, depending on how you look at it, he's going to be scoring a lot more points and a lot more damage on the feet. And that's what it's all about. I think that's going to be very hard to score if you score it on the grappling exchanges because I don't think that any of it's going to be particularly dominant, and with how MMA judging is, it's very, very hard to score it. It's very hard to score ground control unless there's like actual really clear ground control.
Yeah, to be fair, you kind of convinced me. I'm going to go Brendan Moreno decision. I think it will be convincing enough though. I think once the fight gets a bit deeper, he'll be able to control those wrestling transitions more, and it won't be so scrambly. He'll be able to hold position more, and on the feet, I feel like just once he survives those big sort of like weird and awkward moments from Royval, that he will just be able to get his steady jab going and sort of take over the fight there too. I just think, he is a true champion wherever the fight goes. He's got that sort of champion, they kind of have that experience when they're in there, the way you can put him in a position that he hasn't been in before, like that. He's been in every position, scrambly positioned with Figueiredo, and been rocked so many times. He's been everywhere in a fight, and I think that will just tell in the end, and he'll slowly not dominate, but it will be like a convincing win by the end of it.
Do you think he's going to adapt to?
Yeah.
Adapt to.
It will be crazy for the first 2 rounds, I think, and then it will slowly just turn into a Moreno just technically out pointing him everywhere. That's how I see it.
What I'd like to see, I'd like to see them both adapt.
Yeah.
That would be great. I want to just result in a draw.
I just don't know if Royval has that yet. You know what I mean? I think he didn't show it enough against Panjota. Panjota really took over that fight.
I just think Pantoja is so dominantly.
Yeah,
I really do. I feel like Pantoja's Volk a year ago.
Pantoja, no one's beaten him at flyweight. No, it's crazy.
This is why it's so hard, because when that's your like hallmarker for like what the elite level is in that division. Obviously, they're all elite fighters in that division. They're all elite fighters in the UFC. It's just obviously they're not going to do anything against anyone heavier because they are.
Panjota is I'm pretty sure, like 34 now. So one more year in his prime, and then it's done. Apparently, that's what we got to expect now.
And to be fair, like as these guys are getting better, that is a very realistic possibility, without a doubt, especially like relying on them.
Yeah, so there's our predictions. Wait, did you give one? Yeah, you said this. One more thing, quickly, just touch on UFC 300 main event announced. In my opinion, a bit anticlimactic, but it's still the kind. It's in a weird way, still the kind of fight I wanted. I didn't want to see that Ankalaev fight because I'm such a big fan of Pereira. I just don't want to see this reign end just yet, and I think Ankalaev will be the man to do it. But Jamal Hill has a very good chance too. He's very motivated to come, no grappling, and knock Alex Pereira out. With that mindset, if you give me an early prediction, I think Alex Pereira is going to probably knock him out. That's how I see my first thought when the fight's announced. But it's sad that we don't have that kind of mega fight that we were expecting for UFC 300 the main event. But what was your thoughts?
It's disappointing that it's not a mega fight. However, it's a good fight regardless. And I think that every main UFC card for this year is going to be pretty stacked. It's hard to make a really, really big fight for 300. You got to think we just had Volks Pereira.
Yeah.
And we've got Chito, Sean O'Malley coming up.
For sure. But I don't think they wanted to put Sean O'Malley in that main event because I don't think he actually is the superstar that he thinks he is. I think Alex Pereira probably draws in more numbers than Sean, or roughly the same amount.
Yeah, no, he probably does. And it's because he's very much still on the come up. Really.
Yeah, he is.
Like he although he's like kind of at this point, like he's showing how good he is, and he's showing dominance. He is showing dominance. I think that he is still very much very new to the UFC.
Yeah,
like we've only really think about 2 years ago. Sean O'Malley 2 years ago.
Haven't fought any ranked people.
Yeah, literally. Like what was his first fight was Vera.
Yeah,
which was like I don't want to say skeptical at the time, but if you look at what people were thinking about Sean O'Malley at the time, they weren't thinking
quitter. With that, not quitter, but like frail, weren't they? That was the sort of after Vera did that to his leg.
And that's the thing, so he's very new to it. It wouldn't be a mega fight, but to have that to have all these championship fights, we just had Strickland and Duplessis as well.
Yeah,
like these are the kind of fights you have to put on there. And to be fair, Pereira, one of the most dangerous people on the planet, that's a pretty good main event. And,
it's a guy who's going to come out and just strike with Pereira. And Pereira deserves it, in my opinion. Everything he's done since coming to the UFC, he deserves this 300 spot. And says he wants to turn around and defend his title again against Ankalaev at UFC 301 in Brazil, which is 3 weeks later. Will be the shortest turnaround ever for a title fight. Obviously, very unlikely to happen. He'd have to come out of that fight pretty much unscathed. But how much will he go down as a legend once this is done? Because this might be his last 2 fights, maybe one more super fight afterwards. But I think he's 36 years old, been fighting for a long time. What's his status when he retires? Because in my opinion, he's going down as one of the best combat sport athletes of all time.
One of the best combat sport athletes of all time. Unfortunately, he hasn't been a champion long enough to be the GOAT.
No.
And it's a shame really, because if he was a champion a few years prior, if he'd been a champion for a few years more, then he would 100%, in my opinion, have that GOAT.
Yeah, especially like coming over and beating Izzy and going up a weight class, he'd be putting himself, not, from my opinion, he'd have to do way more to be the GOAT. You've got people like GSP and stuff, but that conversation, that
exactly. For that to be like, because obviously, you can't really put him on the same level as like you said, the GSPs and whatnot. However, when we talk about Khabibs and whatnot,
in my opinion, already kind of overtaken.
And that's what I mean. He's kind of in that. So for him to be even higher than that, 100%, like one of the best combat sport athletes. If you were somebody who were to watch combat sport, you loved watching karate combat, you loved watching boxing, you loved watching. You were a true martial arts fan and martial artist. He is without a doubt probably one of the greatest sports martial arts of all time. In sports, this competitive big scene, and what he did in Glory as well.
Glory's crazy, double champ, just been inducted to Hall of Fame. That is basically what we've got to talk about today. Next week, very exciting, we will be breaking down heavily as well, dig deep into the Anthony Joshua and Ngannou fight. Both of us very excited for that one, so that will be on next week's episode. But that's all we've got for today. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Combat Chats podcast. Make sure to share us around, subscribe, give us 5 stars. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.